Racists.
And we're racist.
They're racist. Yeah, they send pictures of monkeys to me and my wife. They're horrible people.
Okay, so comedian Bill Burr is once again pissed off at Ben Shapiro. Apparently Ben went with his family to one of Burr's shows, didn't like it, and is calling Bill Burr woke. Bill later goes on the comedy podcast Vulture, and he flips out about it.
Ben Shapiro talked about going to one of your shows and complaining about you becoming woke, which sort of then created this...
He doesn't even know what that word means.
Let me sum up.
His definition of woke is white liberals' definition of woke, and they didn't even know what it was. They just took the word from black people. That's the worst thing about our people, is not only do we take from other cultures, we don't even take the time to understand the definition.
Yeah.
He went there to be annoyed so he can then have something to talk about, and then he can make money off of dividing his own country. Yeah. Those people, it's treasonous what they do.
Yes, but to be fair, or not to be fair, the fact is that it worked for what his goal is, which is then it became a thing online where then a certain portion of the right complain about how you're woke.
Racists.
And we're racist.
They're racist. Yeah, they send pictures of monkeys to me and my wife. They're horrible people, and they're cowards, and they never say it to your face. What I'm finding is that people keep trying to categorize what it is that you're doing. Like that idiot Ben Shapiro. No, he's woke now. He's like, I don't... That guy, someone came to me and goes, hey, man, you should... He was trying to bring me into his fold. At one point, the guy liked me.
Yeah.
You know? And then when I didn't, then all of a sudden, I'm supposed to look at that guy like he's an adult?
Do you feel misunderstood if people take you words one way or the other?
No, I'm not I'm deliberately misunderstood.
Got it.
So as you can tell, Bill just assumes he knows what Ben's intentions are, and assumes them to be intentionally disingenuous or dishonest. I'll come back to this later, but as far as Bill is concerned, Ben went to his comedy show in bad faith, and probably doesn't believe that Bill's now, quote, woke. Here's Ben's take on the situation.
Okay. A couple quick housekeeping notes there. First, I don't need to pay to go to your comedy show to be annoyed. There's a lot of stuff in the world that annoys me. And typically, I don't shell out hundreds of bucks and then take my wife and my friends to a show in order to be annoyed. I'm sorry, you did a show and a bunch of people didn't laugh in Florida, and then you fussed like a child, and then you walked off the stage. It was really ridiculous, and that's on you, my dude. You probably should give the people refunds because they paid for Bill Burr at Red Rock and they got Joy Behar at the dive bar. So I have to say, Bill Burr is So Bill Burr, I used to really enjoy his work. I mean, on occasion, I still enjoy his work. He's a comedian, which means he's very hit or miss. His Red Rock special, for example, hilarious. I'm such a Bill Burr fan that I actually bought a ticket for me and my wife and two of our friends to go see Bill Burr at the Hard Rock Casino down here in Hollywood, Florida. And I have to say, it was one of the worst shows I ever saw in my life. So this entire show that he did in Hollywood, Florida, it was so bad that he got frustrated with the audience. The audience was not laughing at his jokes because his jokes were basically about how Floridians were a bunch of anti-gay racists. And Floridians were like, that's not true. There are a lot of gay people who live down here and a lot of Hispanics and black people who live down here. And in fact, the room is filled with Jews. Right? And so he actually got so frustrated, he ended up cutting his show early and walking off the stage. And the reason was he was totally disconnected from the audience. So bald Rumpelstiltskin over here, who gets mad when you call him by his real name, is still pissed off. I didn't enjoy his comedy show last year, and he thinks that I and my friends and my wife, we all paid to attend his show just so that I could criticize him. No, here's the thing. On a random weekday night, if I'm going to a comedy show, I'm going because I want to laugh. We paid to attend your show because you used to be funny.
So I've been having trouble researching this event. Ben said he saw this show last year, referencing 2024, but the last time Bill performed at the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida was in 2023. So what I think happened is that he did an unlisted event or some shit, because I found a Reddit post from a year ago in 2024 talking about his show in Hollywood, Florida, talking about there being problems. The guy goes, "Just walked out of the show," in quotes. Not to say it was definitely the same show, but it was in Hollywood, Florida in 2024, which suggests that Bill was there last year. Anyway, so Ben describes the show as a mess, and that he went there in good faith to laugh and have a good time.
So this entire show that he did in Hollywood, Florida, it was so bad that he got frustrated with the audience. The audience was not laughing at his jokes because his jokes were basically about how Floridians were a bunch of anti-gay racists. And Floridians were like, that's not true. There are a lot of gay people who live down here and a lot of Hispanics and black people who live down here. And in fact, the room is filled with Jews. Right? And so he actually got so frustrated, he ended up cutting his show early and walking off the stage. And the reason was he was totally disconnected from the audience.
He describes Bill's jokes as talking about how Florida people are bigots and racists and shit, and this can be taken different ways. Obviously, Ben's put a specifically unfunny spin on it, but it's possible and probably likely that Bill delivered these sentiments in a more humorous way, like with the voices he does.
No, whenever I'm on the road, I talk about getting a 22. Everybody makes fun of me. You know, because, it's that guy thing. Like, oh, what, are you going to shoot a squirrel?
Yeah.
With your little gun? And then you have the people who are, like, professionally, like, outraged. You know, those people who get on. They can't even get it out. What kind of person who... I mean, this is just...
But even then, one of the greatest rules of not just comedy, but life, is know your audience. I could see the audience not taking that well. Like white people, especially southern or rural white people, are often subject to being called evil racist bigots by the left, which gets pretty tiring. And being called racist bigots by a comedian I could see not going well, and that's not why I'd want to go to a comedy show. So someone might not want to accept Ben's interpretation of events. Like if you compare it to that Reddit post, which blames the audience for being obnoxious rather than Bill for being tone deaf with his comedy. Maybe it was both, maybe it wasn't. But at the end of the day, I try to take people at their word, regardless of political leanings. That's not a policy Bill seems to take, however, because his immediate response is to say that Ben is lying, even though he wasn't told what show Ben saw or anything.
He went there to be annoyed so he can then have something to talk about, and then he can make money off of dividing his own country.
Yeah.
I'm deliberately misunderstood.
Got it.
Dude, to assume your critics are lying is like the epitome of bad faith conversation. It stalls progress and only further cements the circle-jerky groupthink mentality. It's obnoxious. So there's also the question of whether or not Ben was ever actually a fan of Bill's in the first place. I mean, Ben openly says he was, as shown earlier.
Hey, so Bill Burr, I used to really enjoy his work. I mean, on occasion I still enjoy his work. He's a comedian, which means he's very hit or miss. His Red Rock special, for example, hilarious. I'm such a Bill Burr fan that I actually bought a ticket for me and my wife and two of our friends to go see Bill Burr at the Hard Rock Casino down here in Hollywood, Florida.
But I can imagine someone saying, well, he's saying that now or recently, but was he ever actually a fan of Bill Burr's before he went woke, quote unquote? So the farthest back I could find Ben mentioning Bill was this New Year's Eve tweet chain in 2018, which said, "Word of the year 2019, woke scold. I'm calling it now." I wonder how long it took Ben to come up with that one. He then replied to that by saying, "Usage. First the woke scolds came for Kevin Hart. Then the woke scolds came for Louis C.K. Soon the woke scolds will come for Bill Burr. And finally, woke scold can operate as a verb, as in, why won't comedy reviewers stop woke scolding the funny comedians while pretending Hannah Gadsby is remotely entertaining?"
I have autism.
So in 2018, Ben is openly referring to Bill as funny 7 years ago. Then in 2019, he literally retweets a Bill Burr comedy special, Paper Tiger, saying, "Bill Burr's new special is shocking and audacious. The woke scolds will be out in force in this one." I probably don't have to go much further, but if someone still didn't believe Ben after hearing him describe Bill's show as shocking and audacious, implying he's seen it, before Bill's self-awakening or whatever, then I don't think they'd believe Ben regardless. So the other half of the story is whether or not Bill Burr is actually quote-unquote woke or not, and whether or not Ben actually believes he is. So the word woke kind of fucks with people. To some people, it means someone who is broadly a leftist or left-wing.
Woke people are more likely to be unhappy, anxious, and depressed. The article cites a Finnish study which concluded that folks who identify as left-wing were most likely to report lower mental well-being.
To others, it means specifically far left.
Like woke is like, these things they're not scientific concepts. They're like,
of course, woke just means far left.
Pretty much. And I think like a particular sort of like what we used to call the SJWs, like the social justice warriors, has now been sort of eclipsed by woke. But it refers to like a kind of far left politics that I think especially puts identity stuff, race, gender, sexuality, gender identity, this kind of thing at the forefront of the politics, right?
And to others, it means acknowledgement of systemic oppression or exploitation.
Before it was perverted by the American right wing, the term woke simply meant, I have become aware of the causes of social justice through activism. Pretty benign. The idea was challenge the status quo, fight against systematic and systemic oppression to try to create a better world.
Etc., etc., etc. Here's Ben's explanation.
So here's what I mean by wokeness. You actually do have a definition, and I've done it over and over and over on the show. And it's not really my definition. It's the definition that Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanchik, who literally wrote a book on critical race theory, laid out in explaining their basic principles, which match up with wokeness. One, racism is ordinary, not aberrational. And second, our system of white over color ascendancy serves important purposes, both psychic and material. So you put those together, and what that means that the system of America, in short, is designed to create racially disparate outcomes. Any proof of racially disparate outcomes is evidence of the malignancy of the system. So I call Bill Burr woke because he is. He believes that America is a deeply racist place and that it's embedded in all of our social systems. And the evidence of that is our economic inequality. And also, if you criticize him as woke, it's because you don't really understand the term woke, because black people invented that term. And white people then use the term woke as a descriptor. And that's cultural appropriation. Oh, how times have changed. This is the Bill Burr who used to tell, like this joke.
All right, the black guy who brought up leg shaking, saying Elvis took leg shaking from us. It's like, really? Leg shaking? No, nobody thought to do this? Black people came up with that? You telling me that? I'll even give you that. Let's say you came up with that, but where did that black dude learn how to do it? Didn't he watch some older black guy do it? But what, because he's the same color? He's not stealing, he's just carrying on the tradition. But if Elvis does it, oh, what the now he's the biggest thief ever? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so now Bill Burr would presumably call that Bill Burr insensitive and unresponsive to the needs and definitions of black people.
So, I don't mean to sound too uncharitable when I say this, but I don't think Bill has enough of a grasp on sociopolitics to be able to think in this way that Ben describes. Bill kind of mentions that himself in that same interview from Vulture.
All I can say is personally, I would never do it. I would never have somebody come on that's running for fucking president with my intellect. I'm not going to sit there and be like, what's your foreign policy? Like, I would be like within 3 minutes, dude, what was your favorite Super Bowl? And then people be like watching it going, I like that Super Bowl too. I'm going to vote for this guy. It's just like, it's just so far beyond my wheelhouse. Like, I am just that's just way beyond. Like,
I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
When Bill talks about politics, whether it's policy or culture, he does it in this loudmouthed, kind of ill-informed way. For example,
Well, I mean, I don't think it matters who's president. I'm one of those people. I don't think it does. I don't think it matters. It doesn't.
so framing him as someone who thinks in this kind of narrowly specific technical way seems kind of I think Ben's projecting there, kind of building up an enemy that he'd like to be fighting rather than what's in front of him. I'm not saying he's lying, I just think he's making a hasty assumption. Because an example Ben brings up, and Bill's most relevant position recently, is his thoughts on the healthcare CEO murder and Luigi Mangione.
So I call Bill Burr woke because he is. He believes that America is a deeply racist place and that it's embedded in all of our social systems. And the evidence of that is our economic inequality, and therefore it's probably okay to shoot healthcare CEOs. He is proclaiming that he is very happy that CEOs are walking around in fear for their lives. Now, you do get some extra points for being a comedian in today's day and age, meaning that we'll tend to give you some more leeway to say edgy things, because you're trying to be funny. And it's not clear to me here that Bill Burr is attempting to be funny. This is just his actual political opinion. He's not saying anything funny or insightful here. Here is Bill Burr yesterday explaining that he is perfectly fine with CEOs having to live with full-time security because they fear they might be shot because, after all, they're murderers too. I don't believe that Bill Burr holds the same standard for comedians. There's an argument that's been made by the left. It is a crap argument when made about comedians, and it's a crap argument when made about CEOs. The argument goes something like this on the left. People like Bill Burr mock the vulnerable. They mock the marginalized, and thus they are a danger to the vulnerable and the marginalized. So presumably, Bill Burr should have to live in fear of making a joke. Bill Burr should have to live in fear because he doesn't know who he's damaging. In any case, here is Bill Burr openly cheering the murder of a United Health executive
You know what's annoying me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every month and now we finally need you and all you do is deny us. And then all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. You know, I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that CEOs are afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy pieces of shit. And a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. That's why these people look, oh my God, oh, he was just, walking into a hotel. It's like, okay, but what was his job? What did he do? What was the results of it?
And they're talking about looting, but CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi! Free Luigi!
Okay, Bill Burr is in a piece of...
According to Ben, Bill wants Luigi Mangione, the murderer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, freed from custody because he killed Brian, who's also supposedly a murderer in a different way. He believes that Bill's being completely serious. And in fairness, I can see why he'd think that, because Bill, especially with that rant, didn't make it seem like he was joking. And he's a comedian on top of that, so the line between genuine and joking is already blurred to begin with. So he should be more specific and responsible with dangerous language like that. But again, Bill's not this, die-hard ideologue who wants to engage in a, as Ben calls it,
blue-collar class routine act.
Bill knows he's a farcical comedian who's not qualified to talk about this shit.
I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram. I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian.
So when he says free Luigi, he's not being completely serious in that he thinks Mangione should actually be set free. He's more joking with a message that CEOs are greedy and unsympathetic. I think the term dark humor would be applicable in this case. I know I've said I try to take people at their word, but this is a unique situation where the guy I'm interpreting is literally a comedian who has said himself that he doesn't know shit about politics. Anyway, so I wouldn't call Bill woke because of his supposed ideological thoughts on the state of sociopolitics or whatever, but based on vibes, I would call Bill more left-wing than right-wing. This is because the way he talks about white people is pretty similar to how leftists talk about white people. Whenever he refers to white people as a group, it's scornful and inconsiderate.
It's weird, when I hear my people, whitey, be like, fucking speak English or whatever. It's just like, dude, this person. His definition of woke is white liberals' definition of woke, and they didn't even know what it was. Yeah. They just took the word from black people. That's the worst thing about our people, is not only do we take from other cultures, we don't even take the time to understand the definition.
My people, whitey, we're all upset. There's enough of us to get it going, trending anyway. We're upset about the new Cinderella movie. The actress playing Cinderella isn't white. There's no prince. They changed the story. What am I going to tell my kids? That my people get upset about. What am I going to tell my kids? Well, talk around it the way you do we talk around the real history of this country.
Like part of your political worldview is your vibes, how you instinctively feel about people, who you do and don't give the benefit of the doubt to, and who you instinctively blame for problems. When it comes to race and racial issues, leftists tend to blame white people, as Bill does. So yeah, without getting too deep into the weeds, I would call Bill more of a populist left sort of guy. He's uneducated.
I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
He's not strong on policy.
All I can say is personally, I would never do it. I would never have somebody come on that's running for fucking president with my intellect. I'm not going to sit there and be like, what's your foreign policy? I would be within 3 minutes. Dude, what was your favorite Super Bowl?
He likes complaining about corporations.
because of how these insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every month, and now we finally need you, and all you do is deny us.
And he isn't afraid of criticizing leftist politicians he finds underwhelming.
You know, when I do stand-up, you know, if I start trashing like Trump, I would hear the left in the crowd like, yeah, and I'd be like, the fuck, you voted for a guy that, you know, is staring off into space. Like, your guy literally should be in a fucking home. What are you patting yourself on the back for? X, Y, and Z, blah, blah.
But do I think he's a full-on class warrior, pro-Hamas kind of leftist?
You don't remember that he appeared on Bill Maher's show where he declared solidarity with the pro-Hamas students on campus?
You don't realize that college campuses erupted with the kids demonstrating for Hamas? They are in with the terrorists?
They were for the Palestinians.
Well, it's sort of the same cause. Why, are you?
I'm on the side of the kids.
I don't know about that.
I don't care if I offend you. I was brave to accept